Hello, folks. We recently spoke about South Africa and how it's going to be a failed state. I thought I'm going to do a follow-up video quickly about that with regards to the state of coalition government and which is likely to happen because the ANC will probably not win the election next year. And as the title of this video shows, that coalition government are not necessarily the solution for us. It's not going to retard the destruction and the demise of the country. And I'm going to go into the details of why I believe that's the case. So stick around and let's go into it. Yeah. So, folks, the South African situation is very frustrating for me. Very frustrating. It gives me so much headaches and so much frustrations. And I think, when I said that South Africa is going to be a failed state, some people might think that I'm being a bit dramatic or I'm being a bit gloomy and all that shit. I'm not. I've looked at the situation, I've looked at everything before me, I've looked at the options, I've considered the fact that we're going to have, coalition government next year. And it's after considering all of those factors that I think that South Africa is going to be a failed state. And why do I think that coalition government are not going to help our case? Here's the reason why. There are two kinds of coalition governments, and their success really, one of them is successful, one of them is not successful. And this has been the case everywhere in the world where there's been a coalition government. There's a coalition government of parties who, just because there was a lack of an outright winner, and because they don't want a particular person or particular party to be in power, they come together, they form some sort of government and they govern. And generally those sort of coalition governments don't last, or even if they do last, they're unstable and they don't achieve anything. All they do is they just become the administrative state, just pay salaries of teachers and nurses and whatever, just run administrative state, don't do anything meaningful. Because that's the only thing that they can do. Because there's nothing that they agree with, other than the fact that get this cabinet position, get that power and whatnot. And then there's the second kind of coalition government. And the second kind of coalition government is often a broad coalition of like-minded people who want the same thing, who have the same policy goals. It often will be maybe it's a mainstream conservative party in coalition with a far-right fringe party of some sort. They form a coalition party, they're able to pass legislation. Not everyone is happy because maybe the far-right people will say the policies aren't going far enough, but they're getting things done, and they have a parliament and then the president who's going to sign those laws into power. Or there is a mainstream liberal party with a far-left coalition partner. They come together, they form a government, they pass policies and legislation that they want, and they have someone in the president house to pass whatever president house want to call it, the president's office, to sign their laws into power. This second form of coalition government is a kind of coalition government that gets things done. because it's often a group of people or a broad coalition of people who are like-minded, and therefore they are able to get things done. They're able to make what's the word I'm looking for? They're able to take some key decisive action. In South Africa, the coalition kind of government that South Africa will need is the second kind of coalition government that's going to get things done, that's going to have a clear break from ANC policies and pass laws that are going to actually bring actual change to the country. And once these laws are passed in Parliament and the National Council of Provinces, then they'll have a president in the union building who's going to sign these laws into power. But what they have here is they have a group of opposition parties who only thing that they agree with is their hatred of the ANC. They have no policy agreement. They have no aims agreement in terms of what they want to achieve agreement. Therefore, even if they come together and form a coalition government, it's going to just be an administrative state. That is, if you assume that they don't fall apart and break within a year. It will purely be an administrative state that just pays salaries, that just administers administers social grants, pays nurses, pays doctors, pays firefighters, all that sort of shit that needs to be done. Because you can't tell me what would be a concrete, clear policy objective that these people have with regards to Eskom or with regards to energy. Because the ideas that the DA has with regards to that, and the ideas that Action SA or the EFF or whoever can name whoever they are just not the same ideas. I don't even think that they have any idea. The only people who actually probably have a policy with regards to energy would probably be the DA. So even when it comes to Eskom, when it comes to energy, there won't be any commonality, so they won't have enough to pass a law that can get to the president to actually have lasting change for energy. So even when it comes to issues of fiscal policy, for instance, they won't have enough consensus to pass a law that can get to the union building and get signed by a president. So the best that you can get from that sort of coalition is just manage it until the next election, or at least we are not corrupt. That's the best thing you'll get from this kind of coalition government. But the kind of coalition government, let me make an example. The kind of coalition government it's the kind of coalition governments that you find in places like Germany. You understand that Germany has not gone anywhere in the past 40 years. In fact, I've already documented in some of my prior videos that Europe has been in a steady state of decline for the past 40 years. And one of the reasons is that their coalition governments. They don't achieve anything. So basically what these European governments tend to do is they just tend to be administrative state. And they do nothing. The only coalition governments that have been effective in Europe are the ones in Scandinavia, like Sweden, Norway, and all those places. And those are left-wing coalition governments. Because it's a broad coalition of liberals and leftists who are passing far-left policies, but then at the very least you're getting some clear, decisive action. So beyond that, shit. Technical difficulties. Maybe I needed that end break because I'm feeling like I'm getting all spirited and shit. I'm very tempted to end this video because of then start it all over again, but you know how I do things. That's fine. That's what it is. So that's really how I feel about this, man. That's how I feel about it. I feel like, and since Since in my personal view, South Africa needs clear someone to come in and pass laws, bold legislations that need to be passed. How is that going to happen with a coalition of these opposition parties? One of the few things that need to happen, they need to cut taxes. They need to cut taxes by at least 20 to 30%, just across the board. Income taxes, corporate income taxes. They need to reduce VAT from the 50% rubbish that NC brought it up to. In fact, they need to reduce VAT all the way down to 10% or something. But that's not going to happen with the coalition of this stage. They need to pass some serious laws with regards to energy. How is that going to happen? I don't see it happening. How are you going to pass energy laws when you have the DA and the EFF and Action SA and the IFP and the NF and like the Freedom Front Plus and how like assuming that everyone in the ANC will vote against everything that get proposed, of which they will, because their aim now would be their opposition, so they're trying to make sure that whichever government is in power, their aim is to show that it's not working. So which is why my argument is coalition government in South Africa, in the current state of South Africa and the current political climate with the political parties that we have, including those that just got registered this year, will not stop our progression of becoming a failed state. Because the coalition governments that will be formed, whatever variation of it, won't be the kind that you don't want. I know a lot of scholars, when they argue about coalition governments, they limit their argument on stability of coalition. I'm not really concerned about stability and all that bullshit. Okay, there's this issue with Israel and how that coalition government that was opposed to Bibi Netanyahu, and it ended up not lasting more than a year. Yeah, there are possibilities for that. But for me, I'd rather have a coalition government that doesn't last a year, but is able to get in, pass key and decisive legislation, get those legislation on the desk of the president, get the president sign those laws into law. Even if the coalition government crumbles. Because then if it crumbles, then we need to go back and have another election, which will take another 6 months. Because after that, once the coalition government crumbles, there needs to be a decision for a new election, and that will take between 3 to 6 months. And while those laws, in the meantime, are currently South Africans are reaping actual benefit from those laws. So I'd rather have that. But instead, what you are having here, you're having people like Abo Bantu Holomisa, John Steinhurst, and busy negotiating about who's going to be president, who's going to be minister of this, and that's all these people are concerned about, because that's all that they know. Because best believe once they get into power, there is nothing that they will do. Not because they are incompetent, but because there is nothing that they agree on. And you cannot have a government, an effective government, a useful government, if it's formed by people who don't agree on anything. And not when unemployment in South Africa is 45%. Not when we have open borders, as we do in South Africa. Not when China is eating our lunch. So this is a serious matter. Which is why I said in the previous, you need to go watch the previous where I argued that South Africa will be a failed state. And I'm saying that these coalition government arrangements that are coming are actually not going to stop us from being a failed state. Just as how electing Cyril Ramaphosa and getting rid of Jacob Zuma did not change anything. Yeah, so it's just a heads up that you'll see a lot of coalition government talks on your TVs. You hear a lot of coalition government talks on your radio and whatnot. Um, you see a lot of grandstanding. You see a lot of negotiations. But what you can be assured of, all of those coalition government talks will have nothing when it comes to policy. There won't even be a hint of policy mentioned in all of those talks. The only discussion in these coalition governments will be with regards to, can we form a government? And who's going to be in what position? And once the government gets formed, it will only just be an administrative state. Guys, I'm so frustrated. I'm so frustrated, which is why, for me, I keep telling South Africans, any of you guys who can get out, get out. Get out. If you can get out, get out. Get out now. If you can't get out now, you can get out next year. Get out next year. If you can get out anytime in the next few years, get out. Because South Africa is in a shit show. South Africa is in a serious shit show. There are no good options. There are no viable options. So, guys, once again, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. Comments below, queries, disagreements, like, share. Tell me what your thoughts are. Yeah, but yeah, man. It's what it is. It's what it is.